Nobody knew who she was. Nobody asked. And that was the biggest mistake they almost made. It was a Tuesday morning at County General, the kind of morning where everything goes wrong at the same time. 3 ambulances pulling in. A cardiac patient coding in Bay 4. A trauma case bleeding out in the hallway. Nurses running. Doctors shouting. Monitors screaming. And standing quietly near the nurses. Station. A new face. Scrubs. No name tag yet. Nobody paid her any attention. Why would they? She was new. She was supposed to watch, learn, stay out of the way. That's how it works, right? Wrong. Here's what nobody tells you about the most capable people in any room. They don't announce themselves. They don't walk in with a cape or a spotlight. They just show up. And when the moment calls for it, they move. This is the story of what happened when a quiet, unknown nurse walked into the middle of complete hospital chaos and stopped it with her voice. Let's go back to the beginning. Her name was Sarah. She had transferred from a military field hospital overseas. 3 years working in some of the most brutal conditions you can imagine. No fancy equipment, no backup just a phone call away. Just her, a small team, and soldiers who needed to survive. But nobody at County General knew that. Her paperwork was still being processed. Her supervisor hadn't introduced her to the floor yet. She was just supposed to shadow a senior nurse for the day. So when she walked onto the floor that Tuesday morning, she was invisible. And for the first 20 minutes, she stayed invisible. She watched. She observed. She noticed things. The way supplies were placed. Which monitors were lagging. Which patients were being overlooked because the staff was too stretched too thin. She didn't say a word. But then Bay 4 happened. A 67-year-old man named Mr. Calloway had come in 30 minutes earlier complaining of chest tightness. He'd been triaged, given a bed, and then, in the madness of the morning, sort of forgotten. His monitor was alarming softly, but with everything else going on, nobody caught it fast enough. Sarah caught it. She walked over, looked at the screen, checked his breathing. And in that moment, her brain did what 3 years of battlefield medicine had trained it to do. It assessed, decided, and acted. All in about 4 seconds. She turned around and said, loudly and clearly, not panicked, not rude, just sharp and certain, I need the crash cart at Bay 4 right now. Someone call the attending. This man is going into V-fib. The room stopped, not because people were scared, because the way she said it, that tone, that certainty, made every single person in earshot understand that this was not a suggestion. This was not a question. This was someone who had been in this exact situation before and knew exactly what needed to happen next. Dr. Marcus Webb, 12 years as an ER attending, not someone who takes orders from nurses he's never met, walked over with his arms crossed, ready to correct whoever this new person was. He looked at the monitor. He uncrossed his arms. Get the cart, he said. What happened in the next 6 minutes was the kind of teamwork that hospitals dream about. Sarah didn't take over. She didn't push anyone out. She just slotted herself in like she'd been working with this team for years, calling out steps, confirming medications, keeping her eyes moving across the room even while her hands were busy. Mr. Calloway's heart came back. He was stable within 8 minutes, and the entire floor, nurses, doctors, techs, stood there for just a second in that strange, quiet relief that comes after something almost became a tragedy but didn't. Then Dr. Webb turned to Sarah and asked, Who are you? Here's where it gets interesting, because Sarah didn't say, I'm the new nurse with her head down. She didn't apologize for stepping in. She just said calmly, I transferred from Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. I was an ER and trauma nurse with the military for 3 years. I'm supposed to start officially next week, but I came in early to get familiar with the floor. Dr. Webb stared at her for a moment. Then he said something that the nurses who were there still talk about. He said, We've been short-staffed for 8 months. Where have you been? Now let's talk about why this story hits so hard. Because it's not just a cool moment. There's something real underneath it. There's a term in psychology called contextual bias. It basically means we judge people based on the situation we first see them in. Sarah walked in as the new person. The unknown, the outsider. So that's how everyone's brain filed her. New, unproven background. But the thing is, experience doesn't care about your file. Studies on high-performance teams, and this comes from actual research, done on military units, surgical teams, and emergency responders, show that the most dangerous moment in any crisis is not the crisis itself. It's the 2 or 3 seconds where everyone looks around, waiting for someone else to lead. That gap, that hesitation, that's where people die. Sarah had been trained to eliminate that gap. In field hospitals, there's no time to wait for the most senior person to speak up. You assess, you act, you communicate clearly. That's it. No politics, no hierarchy. Just what does this patient need right now? And that training, that mindset, is what walked into County General that Tuesday morning and saved Mr. Calloway's life. But here's the part of this story that gets overlooked. After that day, Dr. Webb made a point to learn every nurse's name on the floor, not just the attendings, not just the senior staff, every nurse, because he realized something uncomfortable. And honest doctors will admit this. Hospitals have a culture problem. There's a ladder, and people on the lower rungs of that ladder often know things, see things, notice things that people on the top rungs miss. But the culture doesn't always make it easy for them to speak up. Sarah spoke up because she came from an environment where speaking up wasn't just allowed, it was required. It was survival. Most nurses don't have that background. Most nurses have been in environments where speaking up meant getting talked over, dismissed, or quietly labeled as difficult. And that's a problem, not just a culture problem, a patient safety problem. A study published in the Journal of Patient Safety found that communication failures are a contributing factor in over 70% of serious medical errors. 70%, not equipment failures, not wrong diagnoses, communication, people not speaking, people not being heard, people assuming someone else already said it. Sarah's story spread through that hospital fast. By the end of the week, the nursing director had already started talking about changing the onboarding process, making sure new staff had a proper introduction, a proper handoff, so that someone like Sarah didn't have to walk in invisible ever again. And Mr. Calloway, he came back to the hospital 3 weeks later, not as a patient. He brought donuts for the whole floor. He didn't know exactly who had saved him. He'd been unconscious for most of it, but he knew it was someone new, someone nobody expected. He left a card at the nurse's station that said, "To the person who spoke up, thank you." Sarah kept working at County General. She became one of the most respected nurses on the floor, not because she had some dramatic moment every day, but because of how she worked. Calm, observant, prepared, and always willing to say what needed to be said. That's the real lesson here. It's not about being the loudest. It's not about having the most impressive resume on the wall. It's about paying attention when everyone else is overwhelmed. It's about training yourself so hard that when chaos hits, your body just knows what to do. Some people spend their whole careers waiting to prove themselves in a moment like that. Sarah didn't wait. She was just ready. And the next time you're in any room, at work, at school, anywhere, and you see something that needs to be said, and you feel that hesitation, remember a quiet nurse in a crowded ER on a Tuesday morning, who nobody knew, who opened her mouth and brought a man back to life. Watch the next video on screen. You're not going to want to miss it.